Investigative reporter John Solomon says there's a lot of activity in U.S. Attorney John Durham's criminal investigation of the Obama administration's probe of now debunked claims of Trump-Russia collusion during the 2016 election. My sources tell me there's a lot of activity. I'm seeing, personally, activity behind the scenes, showing the Department of Justice is trying to bring those first indictments, Solomon said in an interview with the Fox Business Network's Lou Dobbs, reported by the Washington Examiner. And I would look for a time around Labor Day to see the first sort of action by the Justice Department. Solomon said he's seeing action consistent with building prosecutions and preparing for criminal plea bargains. Top former officials, including former CIA Director John Brennan, are said to be targets of the Durham investigation. But Attorney General William Barr has said he doesn't expect Obama and former Vice President Joe Biden, the presumptive Democratic presidential nominee, to be subjects of a criminal investigation.
All right, so the Supreme Court blocking Congress from getting the president's tax records, but sends that back to the lower court. On the Supreme Court saying that Manhattan prosecutors can obtain the president's financial records. The Manhattan DA, Cy Vance, issuing a statement calling it a tremendous victory. Want to put up on the screen the president's reaction. He reacted just a moment ago. The lengthy tweet says this: the Supreme Court sends case back to lower court, arguments to continue. This is all political prosecution. I won the Mueller witch hunt, writes the president and others, and now I have to keep fighting in a politically corrupt New York. Not fair to the presidency or administration. He lastly said, courts in the past have given me broad deference, but have given broad deference, but not me. To you, Donna Brazil, as we now await Nancy Pelosi and her weekly news conference, that's expected top of the hour. We'll get brand new reaction from her.
Well, I'm sure that the speaker will spell out what steps, if any, the Democrats will take now that it may go back to the lower court. I haven't read that decision. I was reading the first one. But look, I suspect the president is going to cry a river. He likes to cry rivers because he doesn't want to stand up to what the truth really is. I do believe that going forward.
This morning, Florida in free fall.
Every day it seems like another record.
120 deaths reported Thursday, a new daily high, pushing Florida's fatalities beyond 4,000 from COVID-19. ICU bed capacity in Miami-Dade County, the epicenter of the nation's new epicenter, now at nearly 92% and rising.
We're full. If you come through the ER right now, and when you're admitted, somebody has to figure out where's that bed going to be.
While sending around 100 nurses to Miami-Dade to provide backup, Florida's governor downplaying a potential hospital crisis.
If you look at kind of what's going on, they have a lot of capacity in terms of beds, but particularly in some parts of the state, they have seasonally less staff now.
State data shows nearly half of Florida's intensive care units are at least 90% full as COVID testing lines bend around blocks, and the nation's top infectious disease expert highlights a harrowing fact.
When you look at California, Arizona, Texas, and Florida, they're accounting for 50% of the new infections.
With that oversized piece of the COVID pie, Disney World is set to reopen Saturday after a 4-month shutdown. Mixed reactions over that decision. Annual pass holders allowed inside the park on Thursday for a preview. Popular characters keeping their distance. Temperature screenings, face coverings, and social distancing, now all part of the most magical place on earth.
Back now at this Miami Beach convention testing site, there's a narrative at the moment that most of the people dying in Florida are older. But Miami's mayor says that a third of the city's deaths right now are people under the age of 60.
Our lead national correspondent David Begnaud is in Orlando, where Disney World is opening its doors. So, David, what do people feel about the safety measures Disney has introduced?
Look, for the most part, what we heard is that people felt like things were going pretty well in there. It was thin inside. We talked to a couple of people who had to have their temperature checked. You had to wear a mask. You'll hear more about that in a second. What's interesting, though, is the reopening is coming at a time when cases are exploding, especially here in Orange County, where most of Disney World is based. The average daily increase of new cases here has exploded 1,400% since they did their phase 1 reopening in May. But Disney World is still moving forward to welcome people back.
All right, here we are.
For Lindsay Holmes, Thursday's return to Walt Disney World was pure magic. She says the crowds were thin and the park employees were strictly enforcing new rules on social distancing and wearing a mask.
There you are.
I felt very safe being there. It was a fantastic experience and one that I think that people would be surprised by.
Not everyone is comfortable with the new Disney experience, like Dr. Terry Adiram from Florida Atlantic University.
What was your reaction when you heard that Disney World was reopening?
I was a little surprised and concerned.
With more than 500,000 infections, the number of cases recently doubling in more than a third of countries, and a death toll higher than the world's worst Ebola epidemic, the World Health Organization is warning that the threat of COVID-19 overwhelming Africa's healthcare systems is escalating. Up until now, the continent has largely been spared the worst of the global pandemic. But WHO Africa Director Matshidiso Moeti warned, with countries easing lockdown measures, there has been a spike in cases.
So both about the public health interventions to stop the spike in cases after the easing of the lockdowns, it is people who are going to make the difference, and they need to understand. I need to know that it's in my interest and in the interest of my family to take on certain very difficult actions. And I think whatever can be done to inform people, to clarify their misunderstandings, both about the physical distancing and about a vaccine. It is very important that we invest in this.
The United Nations body said 22 countries have seen COVID-19 infections more than double over the past month, and fatalities have now passed 11,308, the death toll in the 2014 to 2016 Ebola outbreak. The continent's worst affected country, South Africa, saw nearly 65,000 new infections over the past week, an increase of 43%. That's